Hold on. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, geeks, nerds, ambassadors everywhere, and welcome to the Ambassadorial Wing and another installment of the Council of the Ones Babylon 5 review. And with me, as always, I have my two fellow council members. You know them, you love them. They are very zooty, Mountains of Elysium and Lord Koj. And gentlemen, good to see you both today, and glad that you are here. And to everyone in the chat, whether you are lurking or you have been saying hi, hello, giving your greetings to myself and whatever. Archer Cullen and Beer 31, gentlemen, good afternoon and good evening. Thank you both for being here. My friends, good to see you both. Glad to have the council back together again and ready for another interesting discussion, another good review. So, gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Doing good.
I'm happy to be off work.
Who is it? I am off. I am off work as well. So
it's
yeah,
been long, but yes, happy to be here.
Yeah. I was telling Lisa before you came in, Koj, I made a trip to town today, and finally able to get me a new proper pair of shoes for work. And
nice.
my feet were like, ooh, they were like the little aliens from Toy Story. You have saved our souls. We are eternally grateful. More like I've saved my own souls. I am eternally grateful.
Literally, your souls.
So,
no, that's important. The feet is very crucial because they lead all the way to your L5, L4 area if walking roughly.
Mm-hmm.
It's very crucial. I'm happy. That's good.
Well, and not to mention, especially if you're flat-footed like yours truly, and you have very large feet, that's a lot of foot to hurt. So, but you all haven't tuned in today to hear me talk about my shoes and my feet. We are here to discuss Babylon 5, and we are at the episode Moments of Transition. And as always, our good friend, our fellow council member, Fiona Wolf, has been gracious enough to supply us with a short video of her own to give her thoughts on this episode. So we are going to give that a listen. Let's listen. And then, gentlemen, we will jump into the review further. So give me just a tick to pull this up, because that is what I do. I pull stuff up. All right. And there is that. And there is that. Okay. Make sure the volume is up. It is. And only 9 minutes. Wow. Fiona, you're getting speedy at these. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear what Fiona had to say about Moments of Transition.
My biggest, most favorite part of this is you get to see like Naroon just finishing up. Well, he has to kind of finish up his character arc considering what happens in the episode. But it's rather telling that he ends up taking, the bullet for Delenn and even his faction's leader. When Delenn proposed this plan, she promised she would step out of the circle when the time was right. But then, she wanted to also make a point, like she's a leader that's willing to sacrifice everything, even her life, to prevent more like bloodshed from happening. So, Naroon says that line that resonates pretty well. Like, he was born into the warrior caste, but in his heart he was religious caste. And that's what I appreciate about the show. It doesn't really mock people for its faith. It actually takes an honest look at people that have, different levels of faith, and it doesn't like lambaste them for it. Naroon's faith is what ended up saving Delenn and pretty much ending the whole civil war, which kind of ties back into his question from the previous episode: what can two people do against a world gone mad? And you get the sense, like from the last episode into this one, like, oh, did Naroon betray Delenn because he was reporting back to his leader? But no, he was playing up certain aspects to see where his Shakiri would go. And he even shoots Shakiri's words back at him, like, death is just another like step in life and everything, and how Shakiri was basically going back on what he was saying. He was basically full of hot air, not willing to sacrifice, instead putting other people on the line to sacrifice for him. So it showcases that not all the Minbari leadership were very it's typically in support of the people, like serve the people first. So I think that also ties into the fact that the way Delenn reforms the Great Council, because the worker caste was forgotten with everything. So that's why the worker caste is now the majority of the Great Council, making them 5 versus religion and war helping to advise them instead. Because she's right, the worker caste is the one that builds the ships, builds the temples, rebuilds everything after all the wars and spats are done. They're the ones that legitimately help things stay a bit more stable. Because in the whole series, you don't really get too much from the worker caste point of view. I get the sense is if they developed that more, they'd probably be the most down to earth, in terms of relating to other people. But yeah, the whole series really didn't explore the worker caste. So I guess this is also his way of putting the workers forward rather than just having, the various tug of war between warrior and religious keep guiding everything. But again, Delenn and everybody only knew what Sinclair knew at the turn of his transformation, so to speak. And then, of course, you have the little subplot with Lita and Garibaldi and Bester. And Bester was really there just to move things along with the Garibaldi angle. But he basically celebrated the fact that he got a rim shot in getting Lita Alexander back. Which, this is also a precursor point to the fact that I know the Crusade was supposed to showcase a little bit more of the telepath war, but I'm guessing this is why Lita also went full blitzkrieg on Psychor itself. And I know Lanier joins her at some point. I don't know if any of the books really covered it much. I don't think they had enough time. I think Psychor books, like the end of the Fate of Bester one, covered a tiny bit. I think that's the one where you learn that Lanier died in the Civil War of the telepaths there, alongside Lita. I think Lita, yeah, I think she fell during that whole thing too. But the Techno Mage trilogy books, I think it mentions a few things, just because Galen and the others were kind of watching that from afar too, because telepaths do affect shadow tech and everything else, and even some forms of Vorlon tech. But yeah, that whole angle with Bester basically invited the downfall of his precious Psychor by basically beating Lita over with a switch of sorts. Because it does suck. Like, you get to see where Zach tells her, like, oh, you got to leave this apartment, and because apparently, the Vorlons can't pay for anything anymore because they're gone. But it makes you wonder. I genuinely wonder why Lita didn't just, like, convert the currency before it crashed. She might have. It would explain why she was surviving on some remaining funds. But it's more of a showcase of advice of where everybody on the station that works on the station does get part of their stuff paid for because of the shipping fees and everything else. Like, and their clothing and everything else is still maintained because they still have an avenue of support. But it also makes me wonder why Delenn didn't offer, what the other telepath got offered way back in the first season. The teenager. Oh man. But sometimes they have to do this so that way the story is carried forward. Because it looks like, yeah, Lita did try everything she could to get some form of payment from people, but she wouldn't do illegal because the illegal stuff scared her. Because everything that holds up Lita when it comes to getting a comfortable income or a legal income is, well, a lot of corporations keep checking with Psychor, like, oh, hey, can we get her credentials? Da, 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 da. But no, Bester really wants to get her because like what happened with Talia, they want to be able to have her body to study after she's gone, which is also put in her contract that they wouldn't, accelerate the process. But you get to see a little glimmer of the real Garibaldi for a second, where he tries to hire Lita, and it would come out of his own pay from Edgar's, and of course, Eggers is like, nope, 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 you can't have a telepath. And Garibaldi's arguing with like, why not? Because it'll help me get stuff through easier. And isn't this project supposed to help them? You get to find out later. Like it's all ultimately a way to neuter the telepaths a bit. But yeah, you get to see so many different moving parts with this. Because Bester wants to find out what Mr. Eggers is doing, and he also gets to have Lita in the end. That poor lady. I mean, you can see it. Like she's devastated when she has to put those gloves and everything else back on, because she was at the end of her rope. There was no other avenues she could have to get a stable income. Like that, and that really does suck. It's just like, oh God, especially after everything she did do for everybody. But she also, didn't want to get tons of handouts from everybody either. I mean, I get the sense that the command staff would, shoot her some money here and there, because she does mention to Zach with like, I don't want to keep asking, So, but in the end, they had to make a situation where the ball would get rolling, and eventually Bester's deal with Lita would turn out to bite him in the nether regions. Yes. So, what do you guys think? How you seeing the rest of this episode? Because it was a doozy for me.
And as always, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not following Fiona Wolf on social media and on her YouTube channel, I know Elysium has put the link to everybody's channel in the chat. If you are a first-time visitor here, make sure and go check out every member of the council's channel. They all do excellent work, and Fiona, as always, really did a bang-up job giving her thoughts on this on moments of transition. So, gentlemen, let's dive in. Where do you want to start with either Fiona's commentary or our own? So, because there's a lot in this episode to unpack.
Yeah, Fiona did a great job on that. And
always.
Yes, as always.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In her language, what does doozy mean? Does it mean like more? Was that emotional roller coaster or like a lot of craziness going on?
Pretty good.
All right, good. I like that.
A bit of both. A bit of both. So
yeah. Oh, I wouldn't go off on Bester. I hate that guy. Oh my gosh.
You're not the. You know what? I don't usually use these during these streams, but I think this particular drop is very appropriate for what we all feel about Mr. Bester in this particular moment.
Yeah, Bester ain't good, but he's definitely bad and ugly.
He is quite literally the bad and the ugly, and we are the good.
He clearly was checking on, I think, both like Garibaldi and Lita, because moments of transition. Again, the title is like the theme. We're seeing the story progress dramatically, either in subtle or great ways, and I think we're not seeing the telepathic signals being planted or read by Bester, but he's checking on both his assets of what he can get from Lita, which he does, and Garibaldi, and he kind of gets away. But I do love Zach Allen standing on that stairway when he turns in the corner, and Zach Allen's like, "Hi, I see you." So he doesn't completely get away with it, but at least there's a little bit.
Yeah, but more or less he does.
Yeah, he's so comfortable abusing his power so cleverly. It just irks me. That bothers me in general.
The thing that the one thing that really bothers Evergo and crap out of me is we never see in live action Bester get his comeuppance.
We have
Never
to read
see-
about it, man.
Yeah.
My
right,
imagination is good, so that was all right. But still, it's
Yeah,
true.
so-
One, sorry,
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Lysium.
one part of Pester's offer to Lita about only a natural death, I want your body. I'm like, but only after a natural death, and shows her the contract. But we've seen already the Psycho are working on telekinetics to shut off blood vessels through Jason Ironheart and then
Mhm.
make deaths appear natural. So this for Bester is like, I got a twofer. I can, once we sort this out within the next year or two and we have the telekinetics, we can get Lita. So his offer is, it comes, it's not as good as it seems.
Nope, not even remotely.
No, that's what I think. He's planting and checking out messages with like Garibaldi, and he's planting his insurance to have access to Lita's biology.
Yeah, but
He's
he'll never get his
transitioning for
hands.
Psycho.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Coach Jay. I didn't mean to keep cutting you off.
Oh no, I was done. That was perfect.
Well, and bless you, or whatever that was.
Oh, that's my dog. I don't know what happened to him. He's looking in the
Oh,
corner.
okay.
I think a bug scared him.
Anyway, you know, Bester is always playing 3D chess or 4D chess, if you prefer. And he's always seemingly 2 or 3 steps ahead. But the problem is he never counted on a Omega level telepath in the person of Lita Alexander. He never counted on her being experimented on by the Vorlons. And I can only imagine what she does to him or what Garibaldi does to Bester in the end, and not to mention what happens to the Psychor.
We gotta get you those
Yeah.
books.
Somebody, I think it was Colin that had sent me a link or something on Discord. I haven't had a chance to check them out and everything. So
I definitely
I'll-
have 2. I might have all 3, but I'll send them
Yeah.
your way. I found them, by the way, so we'll talk
well,
later.
cool, dude, cool.
One thing
Yeah,
with
go ahead,
Bester,
Elysium.
sorry,
No, you're fine. Go
Bester
ahead.
lies. Bester lies with the truth. He's not wrong, and Fiona mentioned it that the command staff,
Mhm.
apart from Zach, do abuse Lita terribly. I mean, for all she's done, the least they could have done is let her keep her apartment. That in payment for having her on hand when trouble arises, because she was willing
Right.
to work with them, do anything for them. But what's interesting is she's an exile from Psychor, just as Garibaldi is an exile from, like, they're exiles from either camp, but they both stick to their morals. Garibaldi refuses to do anything illegal, explosive, or dangerous that could hurt the
Mhm.
station, even though he's gone against them. And
Yeah.
Lita still keeps all of Psychor's rules, even though she doesn't want to work with them. She won't scan someone without their consent. She doesn't engage in clandestine stuff. So they're both really morally bound, even though they're stepped aside from each camp. And
Pretty
actually,
much.
both of them make a really good team.
Yeah, they do.
There's also this casual stigma I noticed in the Babylon 5 world that since there are telepaths and they have strict rules of how to not invade people's privacy and whatever. If we think about it, there's also a stigma for people who are not telepaths to. I've noticed throughout the whole season, a lot of them telepaths kind of alone. Like even if they're good people, a lot of people don't get close to them just for accidental thoughts spilling out. And I notice that everyone's conduct is either very professional around telepaths, but they don't really have time to get personal. Like we only see Zach as the only one, but even he's hesitant, but that's for different reasons. He has confidence issues. But I think they just naturally, and this is probably the fault of the good guys. They're just kind of used to the stigma of staying away from telepaths. Personally, that unfortunately that habit I think affects their relationship with Lita, and they still treat her like a telepath, and I think unknowingly, just because of like whatever stigma is in 2258 and so on.
Yeah.
So that is a transition there, because she's getting a bigger scope of where she is in the world, because she doesn't have Kosh. That was like her mentor, you know. So
And that
she's
was her
got to
backup.
spread out her own, exactly, and she's got to find her place, and we see that from now up to season 5, and
Yeah.
this is her moment of transition.
Well, and you know, I am reminded of. I might have to look this up, and it's going to take me a minute. Damn. I'm trying to remember Jakar's soliloquy about moments of transition. Jakar quotes. Here we go. I'm trying to remember. I can't. It's not that one. It's close, but it's not that one. Here we go. Let's see here. Let's see, famous quotes. This might be it. Okay, Shaquan wrote. Shakar. Well, guys, while I'm looking this up, go ahead and carry on, because I really want to find this quote.
So just as a bit of a trivia, the crazy guy who tried to hire Garibaldi at the start, or actually did hire him a time and a half to find his cat and his dog, was, and I only found this out, is Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, and the cat and the dog are, was it Dogbert and Catbert from the comic strip? So, a little bit of trivia.
Ah, nice. I do want to give props to Nerun, because he kind of, you see, because we know how much Lanier loves Delenn and idolizes
There it
her,
is.
and romantically loves her, but we see Lanier is held back, and then when Nerun steps in to get her, Lanier steps back a bit in shock, like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I could do that. Because I feel like that's the difference why Delenn is with Sheridan and not Lanier, is because I think Lanier still has some growing up to do in a way. I feel like he's emotionally too young for her, but she loves him enough to be like, kind of like siblings in a strange way. But I think that's a difference. Like someone like Nerun is kind of at Delenn's level, like Sheridan, and I think that's why she connects with Sheridan more than Lanier. I don't know. I thought I'd throw that out. That's what I got from the difference of the two guys going to sacrifice their life to save Delenn.
And
Yeah.
Lanier
found-
was willing to. Sorry, Ambassador.
No, go ahead, Lacey, and then I found that quote by Shakar. Go ahead.
Yay!
Was it Lanier was willing to let Delenn die in the Starfire because he believed in her calling, where Nerun was told, no, she said she'd step out. And I believe if Delenn had carried on, the Civil War would only have continued later because the warrior caste would have been humiliated. Nerun stepping in and saving a member of the religious caste and showing himself willing to die for her and for the people pretty much ended the war, especially as he said, I am a warrior, but in my heart I am also, or I am religious.
Oh, I love that part so much.
Yeah.
I thought that was brilliant. And his sacrifice, I think, united the warrior and religious and allowed Delenn to make the move to give the workers, which are, I believe, the majority of the Minbari people, the majority on the council, and have the warrior and religious as advisors, which is all they should have been.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Well, and Nerun's story arc is truly an interesting one. The first time we meet him, he is an aggressor. And as we see him during various points in his journey, you can start to see his attitude and his opinion about the religious caste change, and particularly about the Rangers in particular, that especially that exchange between him and Marcus when Marcus is stalling him so they can carry on the installation ceremony for Delin as Ranger 1. And to see Neroon's journeys end and him say those very profound and very powerful words, I was born a warrior, but in my heart, I am religious. You know, the interesting thing is oftentimes people of faith have to step up and be warriors, even though that is not our specific role. We have to, but our weapons are not a sword and a shield. They are our mind and our words and our hands. And Neroon's actions very strongly exemplify that living out one's faith publicly, because he personified, at least to my perspective, because I am a Christian, all you know this, he very strongly personified the passage of Scripture. I've got to look it up now because I want to quote it properly. Even for a good.
See, as you're like, Neroon would be one of the best portrayals of Minbari outside of Delin. But even Delin is more spiritual.
Actually, you know,
is the bridge.
Actually, I know the quote of Scripture. Very rarely will a righteous person. I can't. Damn it! I hate the fact that I can't remember that quote. Even for a righteous. Here we go. Crap. This is going to drive me nuts. Guys, carry on everything for a few minutes while I look up this
Okay.
quote. I want this quote right.
No, of course. We want to hear it. Thank you. I want to say that I love the decision of making the council mostly the worker class. And because I think, well, I have a personal feeling that there's many multiple ways to defend yourself as a warrior and protect and have something worthwhile to protecting. And then it's very important to have faith, because we have, you know, what Sinclair says is like, but what gives us life is like, you know, every breath has meaning, you know, and these are all important things. And there's also different ways to do that too, respectfully, you know. So I think the worker class is everybody, because no matter the differences of how we defend and protect each other or how we believe, one thing is for sure is that the camaraderie of working together to build stuff and communities and to work together establishes relationships, tolerance, and understanding better than anything. Like it's easy to share things that we like because we all experience that individually and we share the similarities and revelations that are different. But when we work together in building something, it could be anything, a project or at work or anything. That's like stuff that lasts a long time, and it's something that you make together with people, you know, like something you can't take away. So I just like the idea of community and focusing on the worker class, which Archer makes a good point of, like, you know, the warriors and religious leaders are like 10% of humanity. It could be the same for Minbari too. So it's good to focus on the bigger picture, and then it'll help the understanding and respect for how we defend and protect ourselves and what we believe in too.
Okay.
Sometimes, sorry, you've got it there.
No,
so
Elysium, go ahead, and then I found those two quotes, and I'll get my say. Go ahead, boys. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was thinking that many of like the warriors and the religious can only exist because the workers do the work for them. It's easy in some ways to be, we'll say, the religious and warrior, to be high-minded when you don't have to take care of yourself, to be the true seeker, where the lens says, oh, society will take care of them. That just means the workers will work for them so they don't have to. And so it is nice now that the workers are being recognized for who they are. And I agree with you, Koji, that advice from religion and warrior can help in some ways, like cement and keep the society together, but it's the worker that builds it. And yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay. I found both quotes. I'll read the first one I found first. From Romans 5:7. Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, though for a good person, someone might possibly dare to die. Now the full context, so that nothing is taken out of context. Romans 5:6-8. For at just the right time, while we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. Very rarely will someone die for a righteous person, though for a good person, for a good man, someone might possibly dare to die. But God proved his love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Now, I do want to focus on verse 7. Very rarely will someone die for a righteous person, though for a good man, someone might possibly dare to die. Here's the thing. Nehru's opinion of Delenn evolved and changed as time went on. And as we have stated numerous times, there are threads of commentary on matters of faith within Babylon 5, even though Straczynski himself is atheist. But I think with this particular quote, it does exemplify very much, not so much in the religious sense, but in the context of the episode, and speaking simply as a moral or an ethical exercise. Nehru finally realizes that Delenn is a righteous person. She is not a selfish or egocentric person. She wants to do the right thing for all of Minbar, and her actions always have been for all of Minbar, not for herself. And him laying his life down, giving up his life for another, does very strongly exemplify that particular line of scripture, and I think is very much at the core of this particular episode, because for Nehru, this was his moment of transition. And I will say this: when Delenn reforms the Great Council, and she has that very beautiful and very profound line of dialogue, this place is held for the one who will come. It should have been for Nehru, but he gave up his life for a higher ideal. I am, of course, paraphrasing, so it's anything part of this. But Nehru had his moment of transition. He just didn't verbalize it until his last moment, when he said, "In my heart, I am religious. Listen to her." That right there was the key thing. If he had not said that other line of dialogue, "Listen to her," it could have seemingly ended in more bloodshed, more war. But not only did he save Delenn, but him in his position as a high-ranking member of the warrior caste in his house, his caste rather, and particularly of his house, he held sway over a lot of people, a lot of the other leaders on Minbar. And they listened to him, and in turn, they listened to Delenn. The other quote is not a line of scripture, although I would say that Jakar is a science fiction holy man. And I say that not mockingly, but very sincerely. Shakwang wrote, "There's a greater darkness than the one we fight. It is the darkness of the soul that has lost its way. The war we fight is not against powers or principalities." From the book of Ephesians. It is against chaos and despair. Greater than the death of flesh is the death of hope, the death of dreams. Against this peril, we can never surrender. The future is all around us, waiting in moments of transition, to be born in moments of revelation. No one knows the shape of the future or where it will take us. We know only that it is always born in pain.
In pain. I remember that one. I love that quote. That quote has been like getting me through a lot of problems all my life. Seriously, that's a good quote.
Well, and this episode very strongly personifies that sentiment that Shakar that gives us, I think, at the end of season 3, because that is his monologue, I believe, at the end of season 3, when we believe that Sheridan is gone, that the world around us the world around them is very much in discord and disarray. But from the least likeliest voice came those words, granted penned by J. Michael Straczynski himself. But I think through Straczynski, through that dialogue, we gain a glimpse into the mind of Straczynski and what he believes himself. And I think he believes that the future is born in pain. But there is always hope there. For, to quote another great franchise, to the undiscovered country, to the future. Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. David Warner as the Supreme Chancellor. Anyway, gentlemen, your thoughts?
Well, that's all beautifully said. Two things I have thought that I could say to add.
Mm-hmm.
One is well, back on Nerun, I think it's fantastic that I read this earlier. Mm-hmm. That's cool. But yeah, what was I saying? Oh yeah. So Nerun, one interesting thing, he kind of did a self-fulfilling prophecy. Every time we've seen him, he's always been in a situation where the Shai Elite's body should be here, or I should be the one in charge of the Rangers. Oh, I should be in charge in the Great Council, or the military needs to be in charge here. He's always saying that there needs to be something from his side or him in place of. And then in his defining last moments, instead of selfishness, his same habit of him in place of someone else was actually out of caring and not like, I think he always cared. He just aggressively cared. But this is the first time he wanted to be in someone else's place in a very pure, profound reasoning this time around. So he kind of always did what he did. He just did it for a greater reason. In fact, he found the Delenn in him with that. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And my other note I want to drop in was about the Bible, because I do remember, I forget, I know JMS grew up like Russian Jew, but he is atheist, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So I forgot what it was. I didn't know he was atheist, but I do remember him saying on the DVD special features at some point, I forget which one, but he did say that even regardless of what he believes, he said that the Bible is a beautiful source of literature and stories and themes, regardless of what he believes, and he draws inspiration from that. So you and anyone who does love and appreciate the Bible as we do, it's not a bad place to go to, because that is part of Babylon 5. It has been story-wise an inspiration to it. So finding scriptures from there and Babylon 5, I think they mirror each other in a very beautiful, healthy way.
Sure. is a thing in Catholic belief called the baptism of desire. That's somebody who doesn't know God but does his will. And if you read the final book of the Chronicles of Narnia, The Last Battle, there's a character in that, Emmett, who worships Tash and said he hates Aslan. But when he meets Aslan, he said, but though you didn't know me, you kept my will, you did my will. When you gave your word, you kept it. You were bound to the promise. I take everything you've done, though you prayed to the wrong God, onto me. And many of what I see with JMS is he's displaying many of the values that Christians should have: the self sacrifice, the caring for others, the inclusion, the build community. Do not leave or cast people out because you only create trouble down the road. When you discard somebody, you you're not just discarding the bit you dislike about them. You're discarding the whole person. And JMS has, in most of his works, has spoken about people on the margins with Lita, Garibaldi. We see him with sympathy for the lurkers, sympathy for the worker class here, or worker
Yes.
caste. So JMS is showing the baptism of desire, even though he may not agree with that. And me as a Catholic, I really like how he portrays the church in that setting, even though he has gotten a lot of some of the theology wrong. I am willing to forgive because it's like in the Bible there's parables, and parables, the story itself isn't true, but the truth it tells is.
Amen.
He is giving us the trueness behind the words, everything, the deep as they say in the Chronicles of Narnia, the deep magic.
Yes.
That what matters. That's what we'll take to eternity. That is true. Even if he gets the some stuff wrong, it's nothing that I can get hung up on, because you can forgive if it's coming from a good place. You can forgive if somebody's truly seeking an answer, even if they get it wrong.
Yeah.
Very true. Well, and to quote one of my professors from seminary, he said to us once, if you're not being somewhat heretical, you're not trying to work out your faith. So I know that's a bit tongue in cheek, some seminarian humor, but
It's
I
very
think there is a
clever,
bit.
though.
Yes. I think what JMS does in terms of trying to include just snapshots or portions about the matters of faith or moral and ethical dilemmas in the human condition with MB5. He does it very cleverly, but he also does it in a way that isn't offensive to those of us who are people of faith, even though he is not. It doesn't bother me that he's an atheist. I'm sorry that he is an atheist. I feel I don't want to sound like I'm throwing a bunch of pity at him or anything, or I'm trying to sound sanctimonious. Far from it. But I feel just a slight pang of sympathy for him being turned off to his faith. Not to say that a person cannot survive without faith. A person obviously can. But I think having religious belief, being dedicated to a higher cause and a higher principle, is a good and noble thing. And I'm not saying that people who are atheistic, like JMS, can't be that way. But you're cutting yourself off from a part of the world that does exist. You have a beef with it. And I always, I always want to ask, I've always wanted to have a conversation with an atheist and say, a respectful one, not a hostile one, and say, why is it that you either were a person of faith and turned yourself off to that, or that you have never been a person of faith? I have several associates and friends online that I talk with on a regular basis that are atheistic, and I don't view them in a hostile light. I view them more in a sympathetical light, because I've always been curious. Why did you walk away, or why is it that you have never considered things like this? That's the inquisitive side of myself. And I'll bring up Archer Collins' comment here real quick.
Archer has some nice ones.
Yeah, I am not personally religious, but I can certainly recognize certain places, ideas, or people as holy, even so. Holy, even so. And I'm not saying I'm a holy person. I am not. I just try to live every day as best I can as a reflection of my own personal faith. That is all I can do as a Christian man, as a Christian, as a person, as a member of the Christian community. And do I recognize that there are issues within the Christian community on both sides of the theological divide? Yeah, of course I do. I mean, just like there were issues, and will continue to be issues within Minbari society, within the caste system. There will always be, as Lanier said so eloquently, it was the religious caste, or it was the Grey Council that pushed aside the imagined slights and offenses, but without them in place to keep things running, all those petty squabbles and disagreements came rising to the surface. So there is a truth in the fact that the Grey Council did need to exist, but it needed to be reformed. You could almost call this the Reformed Grey Council, because they are no longer as they were. They are reformed into something I would say that's probably better, particularly for the Minbari as they exist now. So, and I'll bring up MB's comment here real quick. Give me a second. Jamis is an atheist, but he did put faith in the show and admits that for many, faith is a big thing. Yes, MB, that is very, very true. And I'll also bring up our Archer's, our Collins comment here. More agnostic than definitively atheistic, but it strikes me that there are so many different religions, they can't all be right, obviously, no offense intended, none taken. So perhaps each has a part of the whole. Colin, that would be a very interesting discussion for you and I to have at some point. And if you would ever want to have that discussion, I would be more than happy to participate in it, because if you consider that episode early on in season 1 of B5, when Sinclair brings all of the different representatives from all of Earth's religions there to the station, and even within that group, there's an atheist, a person who is not atheist, does not believe in a higher power per se, but that the world in the B5 universe has reached a place where all of these religions can coexist harmoniously, neither being antagonistic nor dismissive or hostile towards any of them. Yes, Colin, I believe it is Parliament of Dreams. Yeah, I think that is the episode from season 1.
Yes, that is. That's the one with Captain
Everything
Sinclair.
where Sinclair brings, where they have all the different and yeah, Geek, MB, I do know. I think you and I have had many conversations about this. I am a Christian. I am flawed. Oh, hell yes. We will never meet the mark to the glory of Yahweh, but we still try. That's the best we can do. Yep, Geek, that is wholeheartedly and most sincerely true. None of us are perfect. Not a single
No,
one.
I'm not either. I mean, even those theologies in the Christian community, I've been like shunned at or welcomed, because I'm a Christian, but I do practice a lot of Buddhist stuff. But there's no God in Buddhism, or the one I was
in
practice.
the form of Buddhism that you
So yeah.
practice.
Yeah.
So there's like
Yeah.
these different sects, so and
Mhm.
different classes, and even though I'm unorthodox, I my belief I practice, I don't judge people. I trust that to God to do that. And
Yeah.
the thing where it fills my heart with joy that I feel I'm doing good or I try is when I do talk to my pastors, when I do talk to my church family, and not as some naysayer. I just try, and I think if we try, that'll
Well,
be a good way.
and I don't believe that there is anything inherently flawed or wrong with that way of thinking. You know, Christ sought out imperfect men to be his disciples. And every single one of this, every single one of the apostles was an imperfect man. And there were imperfect women who are a part of the body of the early church as well.
Hmm.
But they sought to do God's will and to do Christ's will. And for those that knew that Christ was in fact God infleshed, they were doing God's will. There's no disputing that fact. The biggest problem is there's been so much division within the Christian community for so very long that it's going to take a theological sledgehammer the size of Grodd from Lord of the Rings: Return of the King to smash it down. If any of you get that reference, the great big battering ram that was shaped and it was shaped like a enormous monstrous wolf that
Hmm.
the Sauron's armies used to batter down the main gates of Gondor.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a hammer or a battering ram that massive to break down the theological walls of division within the Christian community to get us to talk to one another and realize we all pray to the same bloody God. We all, no offense, Lord, please forgive me. We all pray to the same God. We all believe in the same Savior. And we all, at the end of the day, are brother and sister Christians.
Yeah.
And to kind of bring this back around to the episode, what Delenn and Nehruin are able to do is you have two people from opposing sides of a Castile divide come together, and through their actions they are able to reform their world into a better reflection of what hopefully they think, or at least what Delenn thinks Valen, her great ancestor and her dear friend Jeffrey Sinclair, would have wanted in the first place. Oh, really, Colin? I did not know that. Interesting. There was historically a werewolf, but it was a catapult rather than a ram. Thank you, Colin, for bringing that up. Truly. So, but I did want to touch upon real quick the whole matter with Lita Alexander and Bester and so on, because I know you fellas were talking about that while I was doing some last minute research.
Oh yeah,
or
yeah.
on air research. You know, Lita is not inherently a bad person. She just gets caught in the wrong situations at the wrong time. And unfortunately for her, she has been essentially cast adrift. And I think it was unintentional, because the last conversation that her and Sheridan had was when they go to Zahadum to see if they can collect any technology to help free Bester's lover and all the other people that still have shadow tech stuck in their heads. And it wasn't. There was not another conversation between Sinclair or between Sheridan and Lita after that we are aware of anyhow. I mean, obviously they did speak in the TV movie Third Space, but speaking of just strictly within the series, you almost get the impression that maybe she was kind of cast aside or forgotten by the command staff. And while they were all running around doing their thing, she was lost in the shuffle. And with Delenn having to deal with things back on Minbar, she didn't have the opportunity to reach out to Lita and say, "Hey, we can help you. We did this once before. We can definitely do it again. I mean, you were an ally of us, of ours, and of the Vorlons once upon a time. So we'll give you a hand up. We're not going to give you a hand out, but we'll definitely give you a hand up." But unfortunately, due to other circumstances that was distracting Delenn at the time, Lita has no other alternative than to go back to Psychor. And I felt for her in that scene when she's putting those damn black gloves and that damnable badge back on. And Lita is a victim in all this. And she eventually goes off to Mars to help with the last push for the war against Clark and everything. She does her part, and she does it well. But then again, she is kind of caught up in a hurricane of events that are seemingly beyond her control. And we sometimes forget, and Garibaldi says it very specifically. We see all the pieces moving around the board on a map or on a scanner screen, but we always seem to forget the people that are lost in the shuffle of war. And sadly and unfortunately, although she does get her victory in the end, Lita Alexander is one of those people that gets lost in the shuffle.
That's true.
So, I'll bring up Elysium's comment here. And Elysium, sorry, I didn't mean to run off in the mouth. If you want to bring any of this up, you're more than welcome to. Chesson said, "Of those who do not know God, who are not Catholic, before we are Christians, we were human." Yep. Very true.
He pretty much said that, like, for those who don't know God, I mean, Colin, I think, mentioned that there are so many other religions. The desire to know God is in each of us. Some look and see nothing and say, well, God can't exist, so they're atheist. Some look for God. And I'm Catholic, and I know the Catholic Church has not always been a shining light of virtue.
Nope. Even the Protestant Church hasn't been. But go ahead, Alicia.
From the outside will see that and says, how can I follow them? And they will look for God somewhere else. And I do not believe for 1 second God will cast them aside. So how is there so many? It's that we deep down know there is something, and we search. And we find nothing, we say it's atheism. We find something, a spark, maybe not the whole, but that is why there are so many religions, so many faiths, and so many spiritualities. We look for something beyond.
Well, it was 10 years ago this month, and actually 5 days past, that I had my theophany. I had my moment where the realization that God was real, even though I knew deep down he was real, but that that belief was manifested and crystallized and made real for me, occurred. And it was 10 years ago, roughly. Or actually, it's been 11 years, because let's see, 2010. It's been 11 years since that particular event happened. that for me was a moment of transition where I believed, but God was still some distant, far off entity or being. But in that particular moment, much like with Sheridan, he looked upon the face of a Vorlon and he knew that Vorlons were what they were. And I think for every faith, there is that moment of crystallization that our belief in a higher power or something greater than ourselves is solidified and made tangible. Much like for Paul on the road to Damascus, he was struck blind and he heard the voice of God speak, or he heard the voice of Christ speak, whichever translation you prefer to read. And we have all, those of us of whatever faith we belong to, we've had that moment of transition where the intangible became the tangible, became the real. And Jakar said it very, very poignantly. Often those moments of transition, the future, is often born in moments of pain. And it's oftentimes, for a lot of us, is when God intercedes, whatever name we may call God by. He intercedes. He transitions us from the person who believes to the person who knows. And that right in itself is one of the most powerful things about having an encounter with the holy. Because you're never quite the same ever again. I know I haven't been. So, anyway, sorry guys, didn't mean to pontificate there for a minute.
No, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, guys, anything else about this episode that you want to discuss or give some light and some time to before we wrap up?
I think for me, just a little bit at the end that the Earth Civil War kicks off. I think BR31 just popped it there in the chat. The Pollux murdering the 10,000 civilians on Clark's orders.
Yes.
And,
yeah.
Yes, and
that was huge.
Ivanova's reaction was underwhelming,
Yes.
considering what he'd done.
I think, and this stream took a rather deep turn. Sorry, Colin, didn't mean to. Just kind of in the course of the stream. My apologies if it got a little too deep for you. Yeah, honestly, in terms of Ivanova's reaction, I think I don't think her reaction was under what should have been. I don't think Straczynski wanted her to come off as hysterical. She was pissed and she was emotional, and she should have been, because this was a horrendous act that Clark had carried out by one of his ships. And I felt the same way in a lot of ways that Ivanova felt. And it is, you want to talk about a war crime. This was a war crime that Clark carried out that was almost as heinous and as vile as the bombings on Mars and on Proxima 3. And it is, I think Straczynski wanted to deliver the KO and the next moment of transition. One of these days, I'm going to be on a stream anywhere that stays on topic. Archer, Colin, I am sorry. I didn't mean to go that way. If it offended you, I am sorry. So, But yeah, honestly, that and sorry to the chat. Don't want anybody to think I'm ignoring them. Sci-Fi Nation, it is good to see you. We're probably gonna be wrapping up here in a few minutes, but glad you could tune in regardless. So, but yeah, honestly, I think Ivanova's reaction was right on the money. I think she gave the appropriate reaction to that particular to the murder, and that's what it was: the cold-blooded murder of a bunch of civilians just trying to get out of the kill zone. And it does paint a very powerful, succinct picture of who President Clark really is. He is a cold-blooded, tyrannical murderer.
And it actually contrasts with the what Ivanova mentioned at the start of the episode with the voice of the resistance, where the Star Fury Squadron defected rather than carry out the order to kill civilians.
Yeah, I think she composed herself pretty well because,
Yes.
or reacted well because the way I see Ivanova since she became voice of the resistance, I feel she's a new mixed bag of because in the beginning and even to now, she's always trying to stay focused. She's focused her job. She's militant to the T. She's always keeping her emotions in check, and she's always kind of closing off and opening up in random areas that she feels is safe or whatever. But she's always like composing herself and expressing herself at the same time. And I think this was a mixed bag, and I think Ivana was on point. With all that considered,
I do wholeheartedly agree. And I will bring up Elysium's comment here. Lurker's Guide. Agamemnon was the ship named. It was not supposed to be. It was an error. Animators used a pre-rendered ship to save money. Oops, in response to an earlier JMS message saying the cruiser wasn't the Agamemnon. I have to recant my correction. The image shown on the monitor was supposed to be only on the monitor, not blown up. The animators figured it to be too small to show the name on it, so we may as well grab a ship out of the library rather than building a new one. The Yagi name until after was mentioned here, and I then checked, and to my chagrin, it was there. But in true Soviet revisionist fashion, you can be assured that down the road it will be mysteriously replaced by another shot. Well, and if I remember, go ahead, Elysium.
Yeah, I think it was mentioned there. I think Bureau 31 mentioned the name of the ship. It was supposed to be the Pollux, I believe. And so JMS said, oops. So it was an error that was on the American broadcast, but not on the British broadcast, and has been corrected in the DVDs.
Oh, okay. Because I'm having a hard time remembering this. That makes sense now. Because I had it on VHS.
I wasn't aware of that. Well, I did watch this episode on HBO Max, and it almost looked like they blurred the name out to where you couldn't read it. So
I have to rewatch this again.
Yeah, I think they I think they tried to do the best they can to make the name unreadable, or perhaps go in and post or anything when they did the remaster and fix it. So, and I do want to send a shout out to the chat, Leroy Kong. Leroy, is good to see you. Thank you for popping by. And you are never late, Leroy. You're granted we're gonna be wrapping up in a few minutes, but it is good to see you regardless. And Sci-Fi Nation, yeah, if you need to talk to me for a few minutes after we're done here, by all means, send me that link and we can chat for a few minutes. So, but anyways, guys, I think we are going to wrap up here, unless you all have any other thoughts that you want to share before we do close out.
No, I think we pretty much covered it, and Vienna did a really great job doing the whole thing at the start.
Yeah, I'm lost in my thoughts and feelings of many things right now, but in very good ways.
Yeah, so
I am
good. That's called an Orwellian retcon. Yeah, Bureau 31, you are absolutely correct. So, and I will bring up Colin's comment here. It would be really interesting. There was also a caster which came to Sheridan's side. Yeah, That is true, Colin. That is very, very true. Castor and Pollux, the two brothers who founded the city of Rome, if I remember my Roman mythology correctly. So, well, anyways, folks. No, it's okay, Beer. I got what you were saying, so no worries. So, well, folks, we are going to go ahead and wrap up for this afternoon. But I want to thank you all for tuning in today, and hope you all enjoyed the stream, enjoyed the discussion. As always, make sure you leave your thoughts down below with anything me or the council brought up, and we will, of course, be back next week with another installment. So be sure to hit those reminders once I set the stream up and everything, and I'll try and do it a little bit sooner than I have been. It's just been work has been a little bit crazy, and I don't always get around to setting up all my streams as quickly as I'd like to. So, but do remind you all, I will be going live tomorrow evening. Let's see, yeah, tomorrow's Saturday. I'll be going live tomorrow evening over on Twitch exclusively. I might start off on YouTube for a few minutes, but then we're going to transition over to Twitch, to my Twitch channel, and we're going to be celebrating reaching 450 subscribers with a watch party, and we're going to be doing a watch party for one of my favorite films. It is a film from the 1980s I absolutely love. It is the one and only Highlander.
Yay!
So
I don't want to miss that one.
I will be posting the link for that stream in the chat as always. So if you want to join me on the panel as we watch Highlander, the invite does stand. So, and then of course I'll be back next Thursday night with another Ambassador's Thriller Thursdays, and we'll be doing a discussion on the Romulus and Remus. Okay, thank you, Colin. Appreciate it. Okay, they were Greek. Okay, I thought it was. I almost wanted to say Greek, but I thought I was wrong. But anyway, of course, next Thursday, as I was saying, I'll be back next Thursday with another Ambassador's Thriller Thursdays, and we'll be discussing the great oldies classic House on Haunted Hill, starring the one and only Vincent Price. And we might do a little discussion on the remake that was done in the I think it was in the early 2000s. So, but anyways, folks, you have a great night, have a great weekend. We will see you next week, and until next week, this is the Council of One saying 3, 2, 1. Zooty,
Zoot. Hey.
I'm blaming the internet lag. We were good. That was perfect.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
spot on.
All right.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.